Well, here we are again. LengthYouNarther. We're gonna go through this one more. So let's get started. I want to first address you saying
that this is a quasi-response. Yeah, that's going to be a problem for later on. It kind of puts me in a bind because I don't know whether you're responding to me, you're responding to Roderick, or responding to perceived positions that you think I have or other people like me have, or other people in the comments, or some guy across the street. I don't know. I mean, this is the problem with making a quasi-response. I don't know what you're talking about some of the time, not all the time. Most of the time I know what you're talking about, but the making it a quasi-response and not watching my videos is going to be a problem later on. And as we go through, I think I think some people will realize why it's a problem to criticize videos that you don't watch. I think just saying that sentence should make you realize why what you did was kind of silly. You criticized a 6-minute video that you only watched, that you freely admitted once or twice, maybe even 3 times, that you only watched about a minute of it, or 2. And saying 2, by the way, is being generous to your statements, because I'm pretty sure you said you only did it 1 minute. So, so let's go through this one more time, and I will have some things to say about us doing back and forths in the future towards the end of the video. But and I will also talk about why not watching my videos is a problem when you want to make responses. But we will get to that problem and the quasi-response problem later on. So first, you said you only responded to the first minute. Actually, this does go a little bit into that problem, but I'll get more into it later on. And I promise this won't be a 2-hour video, so don't worry about that. I'll try to keep it under 20 minutes if I can, at least under 30. So I only listened to the first minute. So I don't know how you can criticize my video if you only watch the first minute. I don't know how you can criticize Roderick Long if you didn't read his whole quote or listen to it, or listen to me talk about it. I don't really know how you can criticize anything I said without following the links or following the discussion that happened in the comments, although that's only secondary or side constraints, so don't worry too much about that, but that's part of it, I think. Not a huge part, though, so, you know, I guess you could ignore it. So, yeah, this is just the problem with quasi-responses, I think. It's a half-baked analysis, so it's full of half-baked conclusions, and whatever. So you said that your position was taken to be that from my own point of view and from others, that you think the worker-owned cooperatives are impossible. No, that wasn't my position. I think you undervalue the position. If I came across as stronger than that, I apologize. That's my fault, obviously. But I think you just undervalue the benefit that worker-owned cooperatives in general could have on a truly freed society. That's really all I think. I don't think that you said it was impossible. I think you undervalue them in general, how likely they are to happen, and how important they would be to a truly freed society if they did happen. So that's really it. Another thing you say is maybe I thought that you just didn't understand. Well, yeah, I don't really think you understand a lot of my position still, but oh well. That was part of my point. I mean, that I don't think you understand my position, but, you know, a larger part of my position was just that you undervalue worker cooperatives. Now, you say that without the state, or sans the state, which means without, not a uniform pattern, there is not a uniform pattern of subsidization with the state, so there would not be a uniform pattern of things without the state. No, that's not what you said. You actually, scratch what I just said. You said that there is not a uniform pattern of subsidization by the state. I agree. So, no worries. I agree there. So you start talking about Hayekian knowledge problems. At least, correct me if I'm wrong, but these sound very Hayekian to me. I haven't read any of Hayek's books, but I've read a few essays, read some quotes. I know about him, of course. I've heard people discuss him. So, I got the basic gist of some of Hayek's main points. But if I mess up at all, you know, totally correct me or whatever. I'm open to that, of course. So you say just because we have all these beliefs about worker cooperatives, that doesn't mean we can prescribe that the truly freed society will be this or that. You don't say truly freed society. I'm just putting that in there. But it wasn't on that basis that I think it'll be like this or that. It wasn't on the basis that I like worker cooperatives, or that you don't like or the fact that the state subsidizes a bunch of corporations that I think it'll be this or that. It was the fact that corporate hierarchies and worker-boss relations in general seem to exist at a higher
artificially high rate due to the state. And you can see Hierarchy or the Market by Kevin Carson. I've linked that before. I'm not going to link it again. So removing this, the state removes any sort of, therefore, removing the state removes any of that artificiality from those relations, and thus opens up inherent competition in the marketplace, upon which other types of firms, like worker-owned ones, but not necessarily limited to them, can also see rise in the marketplace. It is based on this that I merely say, and Roderick also says, that they shall probably exist to some extent or another. But the prescription isn't going as far, at least not here, to say that they'll be as much as a majority or whatever, just that they'll exist, because workers will have more options and historically have and do take those options when they can, such as in Argentina and Spain and even here in America. Some worker cooperatives have happened. Obviously, they're not too anarchistic sometimes. Other times they are. I won't get too much into that, though. And actually, you said, but that doesn't mean that we can prescribe it will be this or that. I think you were talking about a different basis than I was talking about. I didn't quote you verbatim, but I think you know what I'm talking about and what you were talking about, and you probably know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so you says it doesn't necessarily follow. Well, to one extent or another, my premises do have the necessary conclusion that it does follow that those corporations that rely on state privilege to grow to a certain size and stay there through that state subsidization, but will no longer have those externalities from the state that externalize the cost of transportation, distribution, and so on. Those corporations will have little choice but to become flatter or horizontal in relative to where they are now. At least to some degree or another, they are going to become flatter and more horizontal, which means workers are going to have more power inherently. It doesn't matter if you don't like workers having power or not, and I'm not saying that's your position. I'm just saying it. That's irrelevant. That is going to be the result. Workers are going to have more power in an anarchist society. And I could even say, even based on anarcho-capitalist logic, they would, because the anarcho-capitalist idea seems to be that anarchism means all individuals. I think this is the general idea of anarchism, but since you're an anarcho-capitalist, I'll say it like this: because capital will be more free to everyone. I don't mean free in the communist sense. I mean free because the state has removed these barriers to entry and stuff like that. Individuals will thrive a lot more. Well, that means workers will thrive a lot more. At least in my estimation. Now, but if I'm not even going as far as to say that most or a majority or all, certainly not all, of the firms in a truly free society will be worker-owned. I'm not saying any of those claims. I just said that I think that they would be more likely relative to what they are now. Even by anarcho-capitalist standards, dude, I don't think that's a huge claim. And as a left libertarian, I'd actually probably go further, but I'm not going to do that here. I think we can agree on that point, and if we can, let's just move on. But if you feel differently, I'm happy to hear you out. So you say predicting what will happen in a market economy is really impossible. Yeah, I agree, but I'm not relying on I'm not making huge predictions here. I'm really just relying on basic causality. In this, for example, here, corporations rely on state privilege inherently because they are a state entity. They also rely on licensing, limited liability, and political favoritism of various other sorts, etc., to largely exist as they do now. And without those resources, it'd be much harder for any of them to exist as they do now. And you pretty much admitted this, so we agree on that as well. It seems, anyway. And that does mean they're going to be more flatter and horizontal. Does that mean bosses aren't going to exist and workers will just take everything over? No. It'll be a pluralistic sort of society, I think. And as a result of all that, they will have to become, relative to what they are now, again, relative to what they are now at least, at the very least, flatter and more horizontal. But like I just said, that doesn't mean worker cooperatives happen overnight or at all, but just that they become more flatter and horizontal. Now, if I was saying or had said something to the effect of, quote, worker cooperatives will be uniform in a truly free society, or whatever, then you might actually have a point here. But I'm not saying that, and I'm just saying they have a better chance of arising in a truly freed society than they do now, or a truly freed market. Now, even then, we still may differ on this opinion, but that seems to be a different opinion than what you're objecting to here at any rate. So it'd be a different discussion altogether. So you said we don't know all the variables. Well, first off, I don't think you need to have perfect knowledge, which is I think what you're asking for here, or near perfect knowledge, or approximately perfect knowledge, or whatever. But if you're not, correct me. To make basic causal statements about what you think will and will not happen in a free society. And I, again, don't think anything I've said thus far in any of my videos must have perfect knowledge or anything even remotely too close to it to be valid ideas or statements. Now, for example, I don't need perfect knowledge of everything that happens between the state and the corporations. I know from people like Roy Childs Jr., Joseph Stromberg, Kevin Carson, Roderick Long, other left libertarians, and even some more mainstream liberal historians have all noted empirical data about the collusion between the state and the corporations. And you don't deny it either, so we can agree that it exists, even if we don't perfectly know the full extent of it all. But then it seems absurd to me to somehow claim that we do need all of that knowledge just to make certain causal claims about what will happen without the privilege. You know, just basic causal claims, not even huge ones. I think you're really overestimating the claims I'm making. Now, how else would firms deal with this lack of privilege? Well, you know, they might try to find other sources of privilege to have over other companies, but where? Where are they going to get it from? You know, maybe collectives that really, really want that kind of privilege, but then I would just say, you know, that those are groups we need to be wary of in an anarchist society, because basically what they want to have is big business again, and we should be de facto against big business, at least as it exists now, because it's mostly a product of the state, and it usually reinforces state oppression as is. But, you know, other than that, I mean, get bigger, you know, I don't find that too likely. So what else could happen in your opinion? What else could big business do once they lose the big source of their business? Now you say, how could he, Roderick, know? Well, okay, first, I don't think he ever said that he knew, and you wouldn't know that he would say that because you didn't even watch the freaking video. I'm sorry, that just pisses me off, so I'm going to get a little bit angry with you here. And it's just stating why relying on the current economy to predict how the future economy, namely the truly freed economy, is not going to have cooperatives, which you did, by the way, is not a good analysis. Now that sounds pretty similar to what you're saying here. And also, since you just said yourself, again, you only watched a minute or two of the video, I'm not sure how you can make this claim about Roderick saying later on. I mean, you even said, you know, I doubt it, but you can't doubt or say or have any real idea about what Roderick would or would not do because you haven't read the freaking article. Sorry, and again, I apologize for getting vulgar with you, but it just pisses me off. So you say that worker cooperatives are unlikely for a few reasons. Now, I have a problem with this because you just said that we can't make prescriptions in the new society based on you know, preferences we have. Well, then why are you doing that for cooperatives? That seems kind of silly. I mean, wouldn't the Hayekian knowledge problem kind of apply to you as much as it applies to me? I don't know. But if that's not what you're saying, or if that doesn't apply, then I have plenty of responses to you anyways. So it doesn't matter. Now you say people are risk averse. Sure, they're risk averse. You know, you make the same mistake as Brian Kaplan and others like him do, namely mostly anarcho-capitalists. He thinks that workers and worker cooperatives must put. Now, I'm not saying this is your position. I'm just saying this position sounds similar to this position that Brian Kaplan has. Now, he thinks that workers and worker cooperatives, for some strange reason, he doesn't explain why, must put all of their eggs in one basket. But this isn't necessarily true at all. To get into a worker cooperative, you all own equal shares of the company in question. But what those shares actually constitute, how much of those shares are worth, and how much they compare to others, is completely dependent on the industry you work in, the sort of company you're in, and so on. And actually, the Hayekian answers you've been giving to me turn on you here, because you don't know what sorts of industrial combinations that workers could work out for themselves, and I don't either. That's why I'm not making any specific claims about, you know, what they would take over or what they wouldn't take over. But, you know, in the end, we're both relying on certain qualities of humans that we find very prominent. I'm not going to say human nature because I hate that word. And then projecting the results of those qualities sans the state, or without the state, in a truly free society. Now, there's nothing wrong about this. You know, you've said a few times there's nothing really wrong with it. And neither of us are going to force the other into the other's arrangement. I'm not going to force you into a worker cooperative. You're not going to force me into a boss-worker relation. It's a matter of what works better here. What is more efficient? And I happen to think that workers who are risk-averse can choose to work for themselves, or work for a boss, or work with their fellow workers. But I think given these choices in the environment that a truly freed society would promote, I think they would either choose to work for themselves or with their fellow workers. Now, I'll give you a brief idea of why that is. I think because you put a lot of power in one or a group of individuals' hands is also a risky move, and some people would rather be in a company where they feel equal to the other people. you know, maybe you wouldn't like that. Maybe you don't feel like feeling that everyone has an equal voice, or maybe you do, but in different ways, or maybe you don't think that the sort of democracy in the workplace, I know democracy, bad word, is you know, not a valid form of equality or something like that. I don't know. You'll probably, what I think a lot of anarcho-capitalists do is they just talk about democracy in a majoritarian sense when there's direct democracy and consensus decision making. But at any rate, the important thing is that there's no uniform way to organize these things. We both agree on that, like anything else, which means that workers wouldn't necessarily have to put their eggs all in one basket at all. It simply doesn't necessarily follow that they must, just because there is no boss or whatever to handle the investments. They can all collectively handle it just like the boss individually handles it with the investors. Now you say, because it's that risky. Now again, I've commented on this before, and this is just ridiculous. You can't take current market relations. You're talking here about you know, how you wouldn't want to invest in a certain thing in the current marketplace with your boss on their company. But you can't take that current market relation and project that onto a future consideration of what we're talking about, because what we're talking about is a truly free society. So you can't say A is like X because they both have a quality of C. But the quality of C is actually what's in dispute to begin with, and shouldn't be, I hope this makes sense, and shouldn't be presumed. I mean, you know, obviously we don't live in a free market, so there's no good reason for you to say, well, look, you know, people are really risk averse in today's market, so that means they'd be really risk averse in the current market. Well, no, that doesn't necessarily follow. I'm sure they would be. You know, I'm not saying they wouldn't be risk averse. I'm sure everyone would be at all times to some extent or another, so I'm not denying that. But I don't think it's a valid premise, or I don't think it's good to rely, excuse me, sorry, I think it's good to rely on the current market relations to prove your point, because the current market relations typically favor, sorry, I just got to plug in my charger so I don't lose you here. There we go. Okay. So I don't think current market relations really enhance people's abilities to actually take those risks and be entrepreneurs. I actually have nothing against being an entrepreneur, but I think being an entrepreneur is something different than being a capitalist. We can get into that if you want, but I'm not really interested in that side discussion. You say your boss does all this and buys this for the company, blah, blah, blah. Same thing as before. Don't take the current market relations and project them into other. You say most thing. And then you say, and this is the straw that broke my back, you say, if my boss says, you know, do you want to invest in the company? Now look.
Stop bringing up the modern economy to disprove things about a hypothetical, truly freed economy, because that doesn't work. You can't just keep saying that current market relations have anything to do with the current ones, because they don't. They simply don't. Now, if what you're saying is sans the current market, then fine. I'm misreading you. My apologies. I'm getting mad about nothing. Again, I'm sorry. But even then, it still doesn't make any sense to me, because I'm not advocating for people to make contracts with bosses and then all of a sudden say, lol, forget it. I want the factory, not you, and throws out the boss or whatever. I'm not advocating for people to make contracts with bosses and who have invested X amount of money that's Y more than Z amount that the workers have invested. I'm asking workers themselves to come together. So this is a straw man in my position, flat out. You say that this is all very, very impractical, that that you telling your boss or the workers who work with you that they want to own the factory now, it's very, very impractical. Yeah, sure, it is, but this is a whole straw man of my position, so I can't say I care. So you try to stress the importance of what what the employee and what the employer says in I think in a worker cooperative sense, but or in that context. But I don't even know if you're listening to my arguments by this point. Worker-owned cooperatives means that there are no employers to begin with. So why would I be advocating anything like what you're saying here? Because you're talking about basically workers going back on a contract that they made with their boss, basically saying, nope, the factory's ours now, dude, bro. So I don't think they do that, and I'm not advocating for them to do that anyway. I want them to collectively come together, pool their capital, and start organizations by themselves. Screw the capitalists, screw the boss, screw the investors, screw all of them. So you said subsidization by the state is a scattershot. To some degree, I do agree, but we both know who the most support goes to, and that's the people that can afford it.
Now, who do you think can afford it more and afford it the quickest? The mom and pop store down the street or the Enron factory up the road? I mean, come on. Now, you have this portion of your video that I shall cleverly title "When Small Businesses Attack." So, well, sure, small businesses are no angel either, and I would never say as much. That'd be silly. Just because I think worker cooperatives are more preferential than hierarchical firms, that doesn't mean I think small businesses are angels or something like that, or the smaller and more horizontal you are, the less prone you are to being inefficient or stupid, not stupid, morally bad. That's not my position. But when they group together, I mean, they basically just form a corporation, a community of small local and decentralized stores could, I suppose, lobby for the state and lobby so they can get certain things done in their favor. I'm sure they can do that, I mean, what's your point here? That I'm turning a blind eye to it? Nope, just agreed with you. Is it because this is somehow vastly different than what corporations do? Nope, doesn't seem to be to me. It's just on a smaller, more local scale. Is this something I'd support? Obviously not, and you said that I wouldn't either. So what's the point? Well, the only point you seem to be trying to make here is that state privilege isn't just with the corporations. But that wasn't my main point, and I don't think I actually ever made that point to begin with, so I don't even know why this is important. So, this whole argument is just really lame. Lame, man. So you talk about the socialist calculation problem applied to firms. Yeah, Carson did that. The socialist economic calculation in the corporatist commonwealth or whatever. But you say right-libertarians did it too. I'm interested to know where. Rothbard said it where. Sources, please. So, not that I do actually have my doubts. So I won't say not that I don't have my doubts, because I do. So you say that doesn't mean just because I have all these ideas about the worker cooperatives and the diseconomies of scale and the economies of scale, that doesn't mean that the worker cooperatives are going to be enhanced. Well, no, you're right. But Roderick was just pointing out, and of course you wouldn't know that whether he was or wasn't pointing out because you only watched a freaking minute of the video. Again, pisses me off. What Carson pointed out, which is that they are economies and diseconomies of scale, which also affect corporations in a negative way. But Carson wasn't saying from this, and neither was Roderick in that quote, I believe, that just based on that, worker cooperatives will be enhanced. There's other reasons for it. I won't get into them, and I've already said a few anyway. Now you say, you can't prescribe where, when, how often, and what the organizations will look like. Well, I've already addressed this. Now you say this is a superfluous topic to talk about between libertarians. I think that's your point. I actually kind of agree. I actually think this is kind of a circle jerk, and I'm actually kind of tired of it. And that's one reason, later on I'll follow up with this topic, but that's one reason why I'm going to, towards the end of this video, talk about future videos between us on this topic. So, anyway, look forward to that, I suppose. So you say, you're not telling me what sort of structure I can or can't have. I know you're not. Trust me, I know you're not. But you are trying to say what is more likely, and that's what I'm doing too. You just think you have a better case for yours and I mine. That's all that's going on. You say there's nothing wrong with being a wage slave. What? Well, by definition, being a wage slave is a bad thing, isn't it? I mean, if we take Marxists, well, Marxists don't have a monopoly on the term wage slave. You should read C4SS's Wage Slavery, the short version. But at any rate, yeah, by definition, there's something wrong with being a wage slave, being overly dependent on wages such that you have no real control of your work environment and conditions. That seems like a de facto bad thing to me, but hey, if you want to make a case otherwise, you're only making yourself look more like a right libertarian. So does nothing but reinforce my point about you being a right libertarian. At the end of my video, the last video I made to you, which you didn't even look at because you only watched a minute. Have I mentioned that? I think I mentioned that. You say it's not some inherent thing because, and then you appeal to markets as they've historically existed. You can't appeal to markets as they've historically existed. Now, I know I've said before that cooperatives have existed now, but then I said that with the caveat that they don't really look like they probably would in a truly free society, probably because the state does exist and they have all these other problems to deal with and so on and so forth. But you say, the entrepreneur and the capitalist all have these problems of knowledge and stuff like that, but you know, you can't appeal to the markets and say those same problems to the same degree would still exist in a future market, because the future market would probably look nothing like today, and you've already admitted that, so I can move on. Now, you're saying, you know, I'm not saying they have to have, you're not saying that people have to have certain economic arrangements. I know, I'm not saying you're saying that. Now, you go into this whole not big, but a little tirade about how us thinking, left libertarians or like me, thinking that you not supporting unions and not supporting worker cooperatives is good enough. Actually, I do think that's good enough, at least for the... If I could at least make that progress with you, good God, I would be happy, dude. I don't think I am, but if I did, I'd settle it right there. I'd say, okay, good enough. Let's move on. But no, you go further and say that we want you to go further. We want you to think it would be a majority of the environments. But again, or the majority of the economic arrangements that exist in a truly free society. But again, man, I've never made that claim. It was never part of my proposition. Straw man. So you say, well, it's not your position. You're talking about people saying that your videos have just been nothing but straw mans. That's actually kind of true. But you say, maybe it's not your position, but it's somebody's. Yeah, but if it's not my position, why would you make it as a response to me? If you're going to address somebody's response, just make a general video and say, Rage Against the Clampdown. This sort of touches on your points, but it's more of a general response than a response to you, because I don't think you have these positions. So then maybe I wouldn't have made a 2-hour video in response to you. Now you say it's no fault on me that I made my 2-hour video. I'm not sure why you say this. It's all seemed kind of confusing to me. I watched your video twice, by the way. Maybe I just have more spare time in my hand. I mean, I freely admit I have no job. Typical left libertarian, am I right, guys? Or typical anarchist, more like. And I don't go to school. And most of my living is subsidized by my grandmother. And I don't like that. Trust me, I don't like that. I guess I'm gonna have to like throw out a bunch of caveats and stuff. I don't like that. I'm looking for a job. And trust me, I don't like the situation I'm in. So it's not like, I'm so happy. I'm happy I'm not on the fucking street. That's where I should be, because I am pretty much homeless. For all intents and purposes, if I didn't have my grandmother, I'd probably be homeless. Although I do have, some friends here and there and family members, but I mean, I don't think any of them would do near to the extent that my grandmother's done for me. But this is all on the side. People want to talk to me more about it or have me do a video on it, I totally can. A bit of personal stuff, but whatever. So I don't think that just because it's somebody's position that it needs to be brought up. So what if it's somebody's position? It's somebody's position out there that it was aliens. Well, okay, but that has nothing to do with our conversation. And if it has nothing to do with our conversation and nothing to do with any of your positions, why the hell would I say, well, you may not believe, well, it's aliens, bro, but that guy on the History Channel does, with the crazy hair, and therefore it's relevant. I mean, I don't know. It just seems stupid to me that you would talk about all these things, even if you know they're not my positions. What the fuck is the point? Sorry, again, I'm not trying to be hostile to you, but it's like, what is the point then of bringing it up? Now, you talk about, why is hierarchy bad if it's voluntary? Well, my claim has never been that hierarchy is inherently immoral. And again, maybe you're not talking about my position. Maybe you're talking about other people. Maybe this whole time you've just been talking about other people's positions. I don't know. Because again, this is a quasi-response that you've made based on watching a freaking minute of my last video and not watching any of my 2-hour video. Which I don't blame you. I don't blame you, but it's annoying. Don't make a video response to me if you don't know my positions, don't understand them, and haven't even taken the time to. If you're too busy with work, then just make general videos. You've already been making general videos. I mean, you complain that you don't have the time to watch 2 hours of videos, but you have time to make all these other general videos that are like 19 minutes and 20 minutes and whatever. I mean, come on, add those up, and eventually you get pretty close to my 2 hours, or at least you get some of the parts done, But again, or not again, but I do apologize, Let me make an apology here. I'm sorry it was 2 hours long, but there's nothing I could have done about it. I wanted to be as thorough as I could. I'm very argumentative. I will take almost any opportunity I can to flex my positions, work them out mentally and just make them more well developed. if that means dedicating 2 hours of my day to doing a video response to you, that's what I'll do. Now, you talk about how we're saying it should be common. Well, I think it should be for the sake of industry and because I find it more efficient than hierarchy, but I don't think hierarchy is inherently immoral, and I don't object to it on principle. I do in the current marketplace, but in the truly free society, I don't. Usually. I mean, unless I find conditions that happen. But I would be skeptical of it de facto. I just wouldn't object to it on principle. So basically, in the current economy, I object to it on principle. In the truly free market, I would be de facto skeptical of it. Now, you said I would speculate, but you wouldn't know. Well, all I'm doing is speculating too, and I never said that I know. So again, straw man. Not that you're saying there that I was saying that I know, although you might have been implicitly, but you did otherwise. Okay, so closing remarks. Not watching my videos is a problem, man. You can't conclusively analyze and try to deconstruct my positions if you don't understand them. You know? You don't understand my positions because you haven't watched my responses. And I understand, you know, not watching the 2-hour video. That's fine. And I understand you not wanting to make a response to the 2-hour video and maybe never getting along to it. Fine, forget it. You know, honestly, looking back, it's more for me. It's not for you. Because at the point that I made a 2-hour video, I was like, this is getting ridiculous. He's not going to respond to this. Or I was pretty damn sure you weren't going to, unless you were really committed. But you were never committed to the idea of us having a prolonged discussion about left-libertarianism to begin with. But here we are still. So, yeah, I mean, again, I apologize about it being 2 hours, but I got to be thorough with you. I got to be, you know, and not watching my videos is a problem because then you start speculating on positions I may or may not have, speculating on positions Roderick may have, like attacking ghosts. I mean, this is the whole video. You're just attacking ghosts. Almost none of the things you talk about are either my position or anything I've even ever said. So I just like don't respond to my videos if you're not going to watch them. And this is just going back to the quasi-response and the inherent problems it causes. You can't do that because then it makes it difficult for me to respond, and then it just keeps building and building and building. And look, honestly, in the comments section, and this is a personal observation, the people you seem to associate with or gather, just really vulgar stuff. I mean, lots of socialism is for, socialism is state socialism de facto, all this straw man arguments about hierarchy. I mean, I'm not even going to bother with the people in the comments. In my comments, yeah, but in other people's comments, no, unless I really am curious about something. You got to pick your battles, and honestly, I'm not interested in talking to, actually, somebody said, I freaking swear to God they said this, and I know they did, that I haven't watched any of his videos or know any of his positions, but anytime I hear that someone's against a hierarchy, I think they're a Marxist. Like, really? You don't even take the time to understand anyone? You're just like, nope, Marxist, nope, Marxist, nope, Marxist. How stupid can you be? I mean, and these are the type of people you seem to be attracting. So it's like, you know, it doesn't speak well of you, man, is what I'm saying. You don't seem to attract the sort of people I'm interested in having dialogues with. You know, they're red baiting, basically, and that's just stupid. Also, you have a remote. That's pretty cool. I think that's, I don't know, I was like, when you took out the remote and shut off the camera, I was like, oh, he has a remote? So, I don't know. Thought that was cool. Okay, so here's my announcement about us talking. I'm about done with this conversation, honestly. I don't typically do this, but I honestly feel like you don't have any interest in prolonged discussions, and you never did. And I've kind of forced your hand by doing the discussions, and for that I apologize. But I think this has been a good conversation, but I'm about done with it. You can have the last word if you want. If you watch this video, and I'm starting to have my doubts that you will, but maybe you will. Surprise me, you know, watch my video. If you want to do a video response and have the last word, go for it. I'm not going to respond to your video. In fact, I would watch it, and I might mentally do a response to you. I might stop and pause and just do responses to you. And if I can't work something out, then maybe I do a response. But for all intents and purposes, our discussion on this matter is done. I'm done discussing anarchy economics, and I'm done discussing left-libertarianism with you. That doesn't mean I'm done forever. That doesn't mean that I'm done discussing things with you in general. It doesn't mean that I hate you. It doesn't mean that I don't like you anymore. I think my time is better spent elsewhere. Besides that, the other guy who made a response to you, the CA guy, he wants to do a video response to my response to him. So once that happens, I have to focus on him anyway. Hopefully he does a better job than you did, because no offense, a lot of things you said were just straw men upon straw men upon straw men, and I don't think our conversation is getting very far, and I'm not going to propagate the stupid culmination that basically this will lead to, which is just straw man after straw man of each other's positions. So I hope everyone has enjoyed this debate. I'm about done with it. I'm going back to my usual stuff. On Wednesday, I'm going to have a response to desecrate conformity. He took a bunch of political quizzes. I want to take him 2 just to show where I stand and relative to where he stands. He's saying he's not a left libertarian anymore. I don't know what's that about. He was acting trollish the other night, so I'm kind of pissed off at him for being like that, but whatever. So I think that's it, LengthYouNarther. I wish you well, man. I don't harbor any ill feelings. I may be an atheist, but I kind of take the religious sort of, or Christian sort of notion of that I don't hold, not really Christian. I don't hold grudges against people. I don't think I've ever held a grudge in my life for more than a day, if ever, if even that much. So no ill feelings towards you. I respect your positions, even if I disagree with them and think they're misconstruing my positions. Good conversation. I don't have much to say. I don't know how long this has been. It seems like it's been about a half an hour, maybe more. I apologize for that. Again, I want to be thorough in my responses to you so that you can't say, well, you weren't thorough enough. Well, I'd rather be over thorough than under thorough. So that's really it. I didn't write a conclusion because I just write my responses to what you say, and then I don't really have any conclusion. So in conclusion, good conversation. I think it helped me develop a lot of my ideas, but I'm done with it. And if you want to have the last word, you are free to. Take your time with it. I will watch it. I will do a. I'll probably just respond out loud to it. Like I would probably like play your video, and then as we go along, I'd probably say, well, no, that's not true, or well, yes, blah blah blah. But don't expect me to comment on it. I probably would downvote it, or not downvote it, but thumbs it down. I've been one of the people who have always downvoted your videos, not because I think they're terrible, but because I think that they're mostly full of strawmans, and I don't think they go further in helping left libertarianism become better defined. I think that's it. So I hope to see you in the revolution, comrade. See ya.